The first stop was Khartoum. So we arrived in New York, I think around midnight or past midnight.
From 2 days, 5 stopovers in the 60s to 15 hours non-stop.
A lot of work has been done, effort has been put, sacrifices made.
What does this mean for Kenya?
It's going to cement the relationship between US and Kenya.
It's not just a KQ project of flying to New York. It's a Kenyan project of flying to New York.
Welcome aboard.
And what's the feeling at the manufacturer's headquarters in Seattle City?
We're proud to be part of it with our 787 Dreamliner.
Yes, quite historic. Welcome to yet another informative episode of the Chamwada Report as we focus on what the Kenya Airways non-stop flights between Nairobi and New York mean for Kenya. I'm your host, Alex Chamwada. But first, the flights at a glance.
The Nairobi-New York non-stop flight is now Kenya Airways' longest flight. The aircraft is a Boeing 787 Dreamliner manufactured by Boeing Commercial Airplanes. At full capacity, it carries 234 passengers in total, 30 in Premier World and 204 in economy class. An ultra-long flight requires ultra resources. This is the route map: 15 hours non-stop westbound and 14 hours non-stop eastbound. Kenya Airways has 8 Dreamliners out of a fleet of 38 planes. For the Chamwada Report, I'm Lilian Moilu.
It was around mid-September 1960, at the age of 22, when Frederick Okacha, now a psychology professor, flew to New York in a group of young Kenyans who were on the J.F. Kennedy Tom Mboya Scholarship Airlift.
The first stop was Khartoum. And you can't believe it. When we left here, those leaders of ours, Wakinamboya, Njoroge, Kiano, Jiru, were all smiling and wishing us the best of luck.
It was a long journey.
It must have been 2 days because, those propeller planes were not going fast. They were not going very fast, and those stops, Khartoum, Benghazi, Amsterdam, Reykjavik, Ganda, and where you stop, you also waste time before you connect again. So we arrived in New York, I think around midnight or past midnight.
Through the eyes of the 80-year-old professor who was born in Mumias, Kenya, one gets a feel of how things have changed 58 years later as Kenya Airways non-stop flights to the same destination become a reality.
It's better that way, because this business of connecting and wasting 4 or 5 hours at the airport that you're waiting for the connection doesn't make sense. Although it may be tiring, but you get to your destination earlier.
It's really something which is proving that when there are joint efforts, things are working. It couldn't be possible if we haven't been working hand in hand with KAA. So it's not just a KQ project of flying to New York. It's a Kenyan project of flying to New York.
These flights, when they begin at the end of October, they're going to make travel between our two countries easier. They're going to connect our people. They're going to make it easier for business, men and women, for tourists, for students, for government officials, for citizens, for everybody to travel back and forth, to connect us.
As a symbol of our return to the greatness that we aspire to, and also as a symbol for Kenya that we are part of the world, and we should play our rightful role there. So this is a really important step, not just a flight.
Now, let's turn our attention to the steps Kenya had to make in order to achieve this.
A lot of work has been done, effort has been put, sacrifices made by various stakeholders. And if I could cite a few of them, as a result of that effort, some key milestones have been achieved. As a country, we got Category 1 status.
The Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, the regulator of the country's airspace, was at the center of the steps Kenya was required to make in order for Kenya Airways to be cleared to fly into the US airspace. The authority's Director General, Captain Gilbert Kibe, explains what the US Federal Aviation Administration was looking for.
There were 4 processes that happened. The first one was for this country, Kenya, to be granted Category 1 status. Category 1 status is granted by the United States Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. Now, what they come and do is they audit how the country runs its civil aviation system. Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, or KCAA, is the state organ mandated to run the entire civil aviation system of Kenya. So it is us who were audited by the FAA. It took about 6 years for us to be able to qualify for that Category 1 status.
In a nutshell, the US wanted to know whether Kenya is capable, qualified, and competent to run a safe, efficient, and secure civil aviation oversight system.
So from there, there's a questionnaire that was generated to come and see in each area of our operation, are we capable, qualified, and competent to oversight that operation? They were satisfied. So they granted Category 1 status, and that status is to Kenya. Even though it was performed by KCAA, it's a category given to a state.
The second process was for the national carrier, that is Kenya Airways, to be granted traffic rights.
Traffic rights is the commercial authority to operate between Kenya and the US. So that was granted.
Thirdly, a security audit was conducted by the Transportation Security Administration, an agency of the U.S. Department of Home Security that has authority over the security of the traveling public in the United States. This paved the way for Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to be granted a last point of departure clearance.
It means that according to the U.S. government, security-wise, they feel that they can trust an airplane departing JKA, Nairobi, to fly and land on U.S. soil without the risk or possibility of an act of unlawful interference happening.
The fourth clearance was for Kenya Airways to be granted an air operating certificate, which is the technical authority granted by the Federal Aviation Authority to operate to the U.S. The International Civil Aviation Organization, under the Universal Safety Oversight Audit Program, also conducted an audit of the state in July 2018, and the outcome confirmed the oversight capability established within the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority.
And we scored, as a country, 78.15% against the global average. Against the global average of 62%. With all these achievements, we must guard jealously these achievements, both for Kenya airports and also for KQ, and for us as a country. For the airport, we must make sure we rehabilitate this airport properly to make sure that indeed we can talk about a hub, a world-class hub.
The Kenya Airport Authority sought to assure travelers that great improvements had been made at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to make it a world-class airport.
The safety and the security of the passenger is something that concerns us every day, and this is something that we work on constantly. And we are working on trying to improve it every day, both short-term, long-term, medium-term, throughout the network of airports and even in between them. So I would say that the measures that we have put in place and the way that we are approaching security and safety is something that I'm very proud of to be a part of.
We visited the headquarters of Boeing Commercial Airplanes in Seattle City, Washington State in the US, the source of the 787 Dreamliner family. The planes are preferred for non-stop flights because of their unparalleled fuel efficiency, more comfort and less fatigue for passengers, what is known as the Dreamliner effect.
After you, please come on in.
Here we are.
Welcome aboard.
Brenna Weinoff from the Cabin Experience and Revenue Analysis team shows me some of the unique features of the plane, but this is just a markup plane. The final look depends on a client's modifications and branding.
What we're walking through right now is one of many business class configurations that we see on twin aisle aircraft today, and actually full flat seats are starting to make their way onto single aisle aircraft as well. Now this is more of what we like to call a traditional forward facing seat, and as you can see they actually fully extend, I'm standing right behind it here, into a full flat bed. This has kind of become the new standard in business class accommodations, is a full flat seat so you can sleep. That's where the pilots can sleep if the airline takes that as a feature. And these passengers' bags can all be accommodated in the outboard bins, which allows you to take the centerline bins out just to create a greater sense of space.
If it's not Boeing,
I'm not going. You got it.
Boeing is the largest airspace company in the world, and it is over 100 years old.
When we work with Kenya Airways, and as they are operating our Boeing aircraft, we do provide guidance with some marketing plans, with training, with engineering assistance, so those types of things that we would normally provide to our customers to support them so they can have successful operations with our Boeing fleet of aircraft. So Boeing's invested in Kenya. We appreciate the partnership that we've had with Kenya Airways for over 20 years, and we also are investing in the community of Kenya. We have many Kenyans working at the Boeing company, and it's very great to have representatives from Kenya working here as well.
We've really gotten great exposure to the whole business, and so I've now become an aviation geek, I would say. I know so much about airplanes and the aviation industry and its potential to really connect the world and unlock so much growth, specifically for Africa. And so it's built a passion in me for aviation and what it can do for the continent.
Still to come, how the Kenya Airways non-stop flights between Nairobi and New York are linked to bilateral relations between Kenya and the US, trade and tourism.
The minute we have a direct connection from Nairobi to New York, then we expect immediately a 20% increase into that.
Daily flights will be carrying some of our goods, tea, coffee, flowers, and that should give us the quickest means to enter into that market.
Welcome back. Now, Kenya's tourism sector is among the sectors that are expected to reap huge from the Kenya Airways non-stop flights between Nairobi and New York. Cabinet Secretary for Tourism Najib Balala is upbeat about this.
Well, first, the US market is our main source market, and that is very important for us. It's the #1 market with over 120,000 arrivals, despite no direct connection. So it's very, very significant, because the minute we have a direct connection from Nairobi to New York, then we expect immediately a 20% increase into that.
Tourists from the US visiting Kenya have been connecting through other destinations, especially Europe and the Middle East.
It takes only 14 hours to fly between Kenya and the US. Rather of spending almost 25 hours to go through other destinations and transiting times to come into Kenya or to go to the US. So this is a good time for us.
According to the Cabinet Secretary, the benefits of the non-stop flights are directly linked to bilateral relations between the two countries.
More important is that it's going to cement the relationship between the US and Kenya, both politically, economically, in terms of investments and business development for our two nations. So the whole country, I think, is excited and looking forward for this. My slogan is, come see Kenya, see Africa. When you come to see Kenya, you see Africa in Kenya. That's one point. But also I am cognizant of the fact that Kenya Airways also is a continental airline. It has wings all over the continent, and it has over 50 destinations in Africa.
In 2017, Kenya's exports to the US were worth $470 million or 47 billion Kenya shillings, while imports from the US to Kenya were worth $570 million or 57 billion shillings. Textiles and apparels were among Kenya's key exports to the US.
We have been trading with the US for a long time under AGOA, but not every product that we sell to the US is under AGOA. AGOA is an opportunity provided during the Clinton administration in the year 2000 for African countries to access their market duty-free, quota-free. We also expect that the cargo, daily flights will be carrying some of our goods, tea, coffee, flowers, and that should give us the quickest means to enter into that market, as opposed to the current level where the current system where we are using the Amsterdam route, where our flowers go to Amsterdam and then find their way to the US market. And by the time they reach the US market, those flowers are expensive. Now we are giving the Americans an opportunity that they can be able to get our flowers in the shortest time possible and probably in a cheaper way.
Back to the Kenya Airways flights between Nairobi and New York, and coffee from Java House will be served on board. Java House, East Africa's largest coffee chain with its headquarters at ABC Place in Nairobi, is known for introducing a coffee drinking culture in Kenya.
We've been asked to provide coffee, which is our Java AA Kenyan coffee, and that coffee will be available on that flight, and I think it gives us an opportunity to work with another great African business and actually introduce the Americans to great African coffee here from Kenya. I think it's brilliant for Kenyan coffee because Kenyan coffee is a very good coffee. It tends to be in blends around the world, but on its own, it's a fantastic coffee. And for us to be on the inaugural flight and for us to be delivering and giving a great experience with Java coffee on that flight and a great experience that I know will happen on Kenya Airways, we're just delighted to be part of it. Thank you very much. So this is a bag of our AA coffee. It's the best quality Kenyan coffee you can get, and this is what we'll be selling and also working with you on the inaugural flight between here in Kenya and New York.
And if you will be on the much talked about Kenya Airways flight, you will receive this on board. A special amenities bag made by Sandstorm Kenya that is based in Karen, Nairobi.
We sat down with Kenya Airways earlier on this year. They approached us. I suppose we position ourselves and certainly see ourselves as a Kenyan brand of international quality. And we were very flattered when Kenya Airways approached us and asked us to partner with them in developing a special series of amenity kits for the two inaugural flights, KQ002 and KQ003, the outbound flight to JFK and then the return flight back to Nairobi. And we've worked with Kenyan leather, Kenyan canvas, to develop simple, unique amenity kits, each of which will have a special embossed panel that designates the actual flight that it was given, that it was gifted on, and they'll never be made again.
This is not just all about Sandstorm Kenya, Kenya Airways and the passenger, but worth noting is the symbolism that comes with the timing and production of the bag.
I think it's very, very important to us. We're increasingly turning our attention to export. And we see the rest of the world, including America, and obviously we're still working under AGOA, and there are opportunities to export to the United States without any tariffs. So I think it's very, very important having this flight connecting Nairobi direct to the United States. It's both incredibly symbolic, but I think it's an incredibly powerful economic tool. So yes, there are all sorts of opportunities with tourism, but I think actually the economic benefits away from tourism in terms of the way that more powerful commercial linkages can be created, I think is incredibly important, and I think it'll be important for us as a business, but for many, many, many other businesses as well.
That brings us to the end of this show about what the Kenya Airways non-stop flights between Nairobi and New York mean for Kenya. Remember, this program is available on our YouTube channel, that is Chams Media Channel. Kindly subscribe to it and visit our website, chamsmedia.com, to learn more about our independent productions for KTN News. Bye-bye and many thanks for watching.